Been away for the last couple of weeks, but I am back now and I'm looking at two shares which have got my interest significantly right now. I have actually followed both of these shares and invested in them myself personally as well throughout the year, but as of the last 6 weeks they have just gone insane. You've seen AMD jump from $200 all the way up to $345, and AMD we've seen jump from that $100 level all the way up to $161. These are insane moves over the last 6 weeks for the sizes of these companies, and that is all relative to the earnings releases that came out last week and the week before. So obviously investors have been buying these. What I want to do in this video is just look at both of these shares from the financial point of view and from the chart point of view, work out which one's a better investment, and sort of look at these numbers and see if they're really worth what the market caps are. It's the 23rd of November. My name's Tyrone and you're watching Mini Pip. Jumping straight into the video, we'll have a look at the financials first. So NVIDIA has a market cap of 796 billion. AMD has a market cap of 184 billion. Looking at AMD first, or both of them to be fair, they have done really well, but AMD has probably come out slightly better in my opinion, and that's because we've seen this revenue increase from 3.8 billion to 4.3 billion, which is a 12% increase from the previous quarter. Now usually when companies like CNBC or your other rating agencies, etc., they look at the year-on-year growth. I prefer to look at the quarterly growth, because as long as you can see this growing, then I think that proves to me that they're growing continuously every 3 months as opposed to every 12 months. So I like to look at this. So we've seen really good numbers here at 4.3 billion, and we've seen a profit after tax of 923 million, which is a 30% increase in growth on their profits, which is really good. So you've seen this 12% increase here, and then a 30% increase on their profit margins, which is really good to see. If we just look at NVIDIA on the same scale, looking at revenue and profits, again we've seen an increase in revenue from 6.5 to 7.1, so $600 million, which is 9.2%. So you've seen a 9.2% increase in the quarter, which isn't quite as good as AMD. And you've seen a profit after tax grow, but only by $90 million, $95 odd million, which is not as good as what potentially I thought it could have been. That was a number I was a bit disappointed with. I thought that would have been a bit higher with the relative, with the revenue being up 9.2%. I thought that we would have seen the income, so the income after tax up 9.2%, but instead it is only up 3.8%. So obviously there's been some sort of marginal issue there. That being said, pound or dollar for dollar, AMD's margin is absolutely brilliant. They're sitting on around a 45% profit margin. So for every dollar that they produce, just double check, I don't think it's 45% actually, apologies. It is 8 divided by 7.3. So it's a 37% profit margin, apologies, not 45. So they're sitting on a 35% profit margin. So for every dollar that they turn over, 37 cents is profit after tax. If we look at AMD on the same time frame, you've got $923 million. You're sitting on a 21% profit margin, so essentially 21 cents for every dollar. So AMD's profit margin is almost 53% bigger. So that's probably why, one of the reasons when we look at that with the revenue, the revenue is bigger by 3-4 billion, by almost 90%. So NVIDIA has an 80% bigger monthly revenue, and also has a 50% larger profit after tax as opposed to AMD. But this is where potentially there's a few issues when I look at NVIDIA as opposed to AMD. But before that, and I will highlight the issues, I'll just look at the balance sheets for both of them, and they are very good. NVIDIA's is superb. It's really, really, really good. You've seen this massive increase in cash from 12.6 to 19.6. That's a $7 billion increase. And the more money that you've got, the more innovation that these companies can do, the more sales that they're going to get, and the more business they're going to steal off companies like Intel or off each other. Total assets are up as well, 8 billion to 38.6 billion, and liabilities, have gone up around 5 billion. So that gives them a liabilities to assets ratio of around 45%. So they're trading on around a 45% liabilities to assets ratio. That's average, that's fine, that's good, it's perfect. You look at Facebook, I think Facebook's is around 20-ish percent. And if we look at AMD, and I know obviously Facebook isn't in the same area, but that just gives an example. AMD is significantly better. They're sitting at a 36% liabilities to assets ratio, so they are slightly better when it comes to assets and debts. Provided they can keep that up, then yeah, you're potentially going to see a better growth and a better divide between the debts and the assets. Now, you've got liabilities which are almost 3.5 times bigger, assets which are 3.5 times bigger. At the same time, your debts are also almost 4 times bigger. And if we look at the market caps, and this is the issue that I have when it comes to AMD and NVIDIA, NVIDIA's got a market cap of just short of 800 billion, and you've got AMD sitting at 184 billion, which means essentially you're almost 3.5 times bigger, or NVIDIA is 3.5 times bigger than AMD. And quite frankly, when you see AMD's revenue, fair enough, the profit margin isn't as good, but their revenue is actually slightly better. They're doing better on the month-on-month revenue than than NVIDIA. But it's very difficult to apprehend which one I would, from that point of view. I think that the difference is worth in market cap. If they was doing the same revenue, I worked it out that I believe that AMD should be worth about 280 billion, which means there's about a $450 billion difference in market cap, and that is basically because they've got $30 billion more in assets and they do a slightly bigger turnover and profit. And I don't think that's worth 430 billion. That's 10 Barclays banks, for instance. I just don't think that is worth that. And so as a result, looking at the financial point of view, in my opinion, I think AMD has more room to grow. They have a smaller revenue. They the profit margin isn't as good. However, they are working on that. And obviously in the most recent quarter, we have seen that increase better, from the previous quarter. You've seen a 12% increase in the revenue, and then you've seen a 30% increase in the profits. If they continue that, give them 5 or 6 more quarters, and they'll be at the same profit margins that NVIDIA will be, and account for the increase in the revenue, you're potentially going to see AMD doing the same type of revenues that NVIDIA is doing now, which tells me that they do have more room to run in terms of where they're valued. Now, looking at the charts, that's a different type of thing. The charts are pretty much, to be fair, I say it's different, it's not. They look the same. They look exactly the same, in my opinion, and you can't really distinguish the difference. I mean, you can't, but let's look at them anyways. So we'll look at NVIDIA first. We are oversold. That is the first big issue here, is that we are oversold, and I would like to see pull back like this here, potentially go down to somewhere in the region of around $300, where I'd like to potentially buy in, and we see this head up towards 350, and then we go to 400. 400 would be the target for 2022. I would like to see that. It is possible. The revenue growth is there and the profits are there. If we did fall further, then you've got support down to sort of the 280 level, 290 level here, and if we continued further, then it could be a free fall all the way down to 240. The thing is, though, if this was to happen, there would have to be a reason for that. And given that you've got Facebook going into the metaverse, you've got companies like Roblox, which is potentially a good investment. Facebook will be a good investment. NVIDIA and AMD are going to lead the way when it comes to the innovation that goes into this metaverse stuff and this new generation of technology, and along with cryptos and things like that. Looking at AMD, it's pretty much the same. On the weekly, we're overbought. On the daily, we're not overbought, actually. So we're slightly cheaper. We're reading 67. That's still high. So we could see a slight bit more pullback towards the 140 level, which would be good. So your first support is 140. Break below that, you've got a nice, good, solid area at 120. And if we break 120, then we obviously go down to that psychological level of 100. I would be a buyer on all of these dips if we did continue to fall, and I would probably continue to add this. My target for 2022 would probably be somewhere in the region of a nice round figure like AMD. Go for $200, because markets and algorithms like those round numbers. First initial target though, and the tough resistance, is probably going to be this 160. After 160, you've just got this space here where you can do what it wants really. You can go up as much as it wants or down as much as it wants, and you can't determine where that's going to be. If you see a $200 share price, that's going to give AMD a market cap of, what we're at, 151, so it's going to give a market cap of somewhere in the region of about 35 to 40% higher. So it's going to give them 185 times 1.4, it's about 250 to 260 billion dollar market cap, which relative to NVIDIA I don't think is bad, and that's why I'm looking at both of these. In my opinion, and again, this isn't financial advice, I'm not saying to buy or sell any of these shares, you do what you want, I don't care. If I had £1,000, I would probably have 750 quid in AMD, and I would have 250 quid in NVIDIA. That's how I would personally split it up, because I would want to be involved with both of these companies. I wouldn't want to just be in one and not the other, because it's the similar situation to Apple and Microsoft. You wouldn't want to pick one or the other, because they're both going to do really good and they're both there to stay. So why not get involved with both? You pick one that potentially you may think is better. I know I've spoken to people on both of these companies before, and I've got someone who prefers NVIDIA, someone who prefers Intel. But in my opinion, if I'm looking at both of these shares, they have got a summary of this video. They've got a lot more room to run. Pullback should be bought, in my opinion. 300 is probably a good target for it. NVIDIA buy-in, but by all means, if that could just continue way higher and continue up to 400 in the next 3 months, you do not underestimate these shares. They can really pump. If Tesla can pump like it does, NVIDIA and AMD can pump like they do. But ultimately, these are buys. I don't think that we will get some sort of bubble like we did here back in the 2000s and 2008, and NVIDIA went through the same thing. The only reason being is because we are getting into that world now of the metaverse. Technology is part of it. With us having the post-pandemic, it makes sense for us to go towards technology, and both of these companies are going to lead that way, along with Intel. Intel as a competitor, if we just have a quick look, we look at Intel. Essentially those two companies that are stealing business from Intel. That is where they're getting most of their sales from. Customers going from Intel to NVIDIA or Intel to AMD, and you can see that Intel at one point had a share price of $74, and we're now sitting at 50. So if you bought these in 2000, you still wouldn't have made your money back, which tells me that the share price or the market cap of Intel, which I haven't checked what it is, I don't know what it is, but let's have a quick look. You've got a market cap on Intel which is reading 200 billion. So there's $200 billion there, which could be easily shared out between AMD and NVIDIA over the next 10 years alone, because I personally just, Intel it's nothing that's interested me, it never has done. A lot of people are trying to move away from the Intel. Apple do their own chips and stuff like that. But overall, these are both really good shares. I will be tracking them both on MiniPip throughout the time, throughout their time, shall I say. So just like and subscribe and just follow us, and as this stock goes up or goes down, I'll be commenting on where next potentially. But generally, this is an up market, and it is the same with NVIDIA or anything that's similar to that. Thanks for watching.